Hello there. My name's David Hewson. I'm the author of the Arnold Clover series of books set in Venice. I've written quite a lot of books set in Italy over the last 25 years, but these are the newest one. And the latest title is The Devil in Dorsoduro. And I'm delighted to be joined by Owen Findlay, a very talented actor who has provided the voice of Arnold Clover, the voice of this story for the book, and done a fantastic job, I have to say. Good day, Owen, and thank you.
Good morning. Yes, well, thank you very much for your kind words, David. It's very nice of you. I'm glad that I've done Arnold proud. That's the point.
I mean, you've had, a very varied career, as well as being an extremely experienced audiobook narrator. I mean, you played Robin Hood in Stan and Ollie on film, and you've done Venice in Othello and The Merchant of Venice for the Royal Shakespeare Company. How did you get into audiobooks?
I got into audiobooks. I've always enjoyed reading stories to other people. I read stories to my mum when I was little, when she was ill. I read stories to my wife. I think it's one of the best versions of story is reading it to other people. So I've always enjoyed doing it. And then I was lucky enough that a friend of mine connected me with a very good voice agent who got me connected with firstly Audible and then some other recording studios. And then they, luckily for me, liked what I did and kept hiring me.
Yeah, I think people often forget that storytelling actually began with the voice, not with writing. I mean, one of the things I've learnt in the years of working alongside audio is that it is the original form of telling a story. And it's actually changed the way I write because of the things I've learnt over the years. Now, I have to say, you are taking over this series from Richard Armitage, who is like such a famous and brilliant audio narrator. I first worked with him on some Shakespeare adaptations, actually. It was Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet for Audible 15 years or so ago. And we won an Audie for that in the States. Was it a bit daunting taking over from Richard?
Yes, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't daunting. But it's a whole mix of things, actually. I mean, it was daunting, but it was also really exciting. It was also a real privilege to be regarded as able to take over the series from him. So it was a really exciting challenge to take it on from him. And it's a really good opportunity to learn as well, because it gave me a real opportunity to properly study how he does it. So I listened all the way through to the previous Clover books and to try and get the version of Arnold that Richard does, and also to get a sense of your world. But basically, it was a very exciting challenge and opportunity to really learn and push myself, as well as being rather nerve-wracking. Because I saw lots of the reviews, people really, really connect to Arnold. So I wanted to make sure that I did him a service for you and for all the fans of the books. It's a little bit like, I don't know if you know the 1950s Italian translator John Ciardi.
Mm-hmm.
He translated the Dante's Divine Comedy, and he talked about translation being more like transposition. So stepping more into your previous book of music rather than Devil. That when you're translating between languages, it's like you're transposing between instruments. And so I thought of it rather than trying to copy what Richard did, trying to work out how I could transpose the music of his Arnold to my own vocal instrument. To sound a bit pretentious, but if that makes sense. So
no, I think you absolutely did it. I mean, you can tell that it's a natural follow on from Richard's work, but you've also made it your own as well and given the character, there's a slightly different nuance to it. I think it's kind of perhaps a bit gentler almost, but it is absolutely perfect, I think, for the story.
Good.
So thank you for that. And I mean, the other thing I have to say for anybody who's listening to this is that if you think that narrating an audiobook is easy, you have no idea. I mean, I've been in the studio with Richard, and the way narrators who are good at this become completely absorbed in the story and oblivious to everything else while they're trying to bring it to life is quite extraordinary, really. And also, you're narrating a book with foreign characters. I mean, there's an English character, an American character, and Italians. How do you approach accents and pronunciation in a book like this?
A lot of listening, really. A combination of a lot of listening, a lot of practice, and the word I'm reaching for is humility. But again, that sounds a bit over the top. But I think that, don't assume that you know how to pronounce a word. I don't think I'm spoiling anything from the book. That there is a canine companion who's important to the story. And I always thought I knew how to pronounce the word dachshund, but it's not dachshund, it's dachshund. As a kind of an example of being prepared to actually properly research every single word that might be tricky. So research, really, to go to properly answer a question. For pronunciations, there are some really good websites online. Wikipedia is amazingly good for pronunciations. In previous books I've had, I recently recorded a book that had many Japanese characters in it.
Wow.
I used lots of Japanese words, and trying to find out the correct pronunciation of those, especially for a Western reader. And Wikipedia was really useful, but there are lots of websites online that are useful. Listening to different interviews and people in different voices. I mean, even for Arnold, to make sure that I got his voice right, I spent a large amount of time listening to Yorkshire accents. Luckily, I speak Italian. So that gave me a good foothold into knowing that, well, as you will know, all the double consonants in Italian need a little extra stress.
The word that always throws people in Venice is chioggia. When you see Chioggia, and if you don't know how to pronounce that, the normal people will say Chioggia. And, it is simply just chioggia. Yeah.
Well, it's the bruschetta thing.
Yeah. I mean, that is very obvious, listening to it, that you do speak Italian, because it just comes across so naturally. And also, as a writer, I tend not to use Italian words unless I really need to do it. And what I don't like doing is, sort of throwing a per favore in to say, like, he's gone into a cafe, and that's just as a reminder that we're in Italy. I try to avoid all that. So it's a delicate kind of balance between letting people know you are in Italy rather than just shoving it in their face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, audiobook narration has changed enormously over years. I mean, I've been very fortunate in that W.F. Howes have been my audio publisher really for most of my career, probably for 25 years. And from the outset, audio books were initially for the visually impaired. They used to come in with all these cassettes. And in the very early days, they were simply somebody reading a book out loud to you. I mean, there was no sense of character or inflection or performance to it. And Howes were always very good at bringing on the right narrators to bring the book to life in a way that was much more than just simply having it read to you. And I just wonder how that transformation's come apart and what makes a great narrator. I mean, you are an actor, you are a trained actor, and you've been on the stage, and it always strikes me that people with stage experience really get what is going on with narration. And people who've only got like film and TV experience struggle more with it. Do you think that the stage experience you've got helps with audio?
Yes and no. to answer a question in a slightly annoying way. I think the difficulty that I had starting off audio, coming from a stage background, is the volume. Because on the stage, you're talking to the back of the room, and on audio, you're talking to the microphone. So when things get passionate or loud or intense, one's instinct as a stage actor is to make it bigger, volume-wise, and that doesn't work when you're talking to a microphone. However, there are far more benefits for having stage experience, I think, because there's a muscularity to one's diction. You have to be. I was very lucky that I had very good vocal training when I went to drama school, and the muscularity of diction that you need to do stage work properly, let alone Shakespeare. I was lucky actually recently to hear a eulogy given by Greg Doran, the previous head of the RSC, and his pronunciation and delivery is perfect because he's a trained actor, a stage actor, and so that helps. So the muscularity of diction is really useful for audio narration. I think also the advantage of stage acting to screen acting is that you have to hold the narrative for 2 hours, 3 hours, whereas on film it's very bitty because you're not filming it in order, you're not doing all the scenes in order. So if that's just been your training, you're used to being able to deliver high quality performances, but for 45 seconds, 2 minutes. Whereas being sat and telling a story in a space for an extended period of time, not that we obviously read the whole book in one go, but you're reading it in long sections, the training that you've had, the practice that you've had of telling a story over a long period of time, rather, is also really useful. But I think that the main point of an actor is to be a narrator, is to be a storyteller, is to be a conduit for the story. And so if your performance takes over, your kind of acting takes over from the story, then you're not doing your job properly. So
I think that's one of the difficulties in audiobooks, that sometimes people are acting too much. The accents are too loud. It's this balance between narration and performance that fascinates me, and it is so delicate and such a fine line, and that's what makes the difference between an audiobook that's going to work and one that's going to just be a bit too rich for people. So yeah. I would never. I once tried to narrate one of my own books, and I got through about 2 hours, and I just thought, this is too hard. This is even harder than writing the book in the first place. So I gave up on that. Now, lots of writers say to me, your books are very popular in audio. Why is that? And how do you write a book that's going to make good audio? I mean, what is it when you're given a book to narrate? What is it that you look for in the book that makes you think, actually, this is going to be good? This is something I can work with. What are the things that you actually enjoy coming across?
That is a very good question, and it's tricky to answer because it's a little bit like asking what makes a good book. There are some things, but I think the main idea really is that it's a writer who clearly understands the craft of writing. So the words sound nice to say, the sentences flow one to the other nicely. The pacing is good. Everything I think that makes the main kind of headline answer to it would be everything that makes a good book makes a good audiobook.
I agree. Yeah.
Because stories started with us telling each other stories, not us reading stories. We told each other stories. that if you're writing well, if you've crafted your words well, then it will read well out loud, I think. There's a really good book by Margaret Atwood called Steering the Craft, which I'm partway through reading at the moment. And it's brilliant. It's a really good distillation, I think. I mean, she's a brilliant writer. It's a really good distillation of ideas and thoughts to help turn your writing in from, as you will know, it's not just a stringing together of words. It's a craft. You have to hone it like a piece of furniture or a painting. If you've done that, your writing will be nice to read, I think.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's like acting is best when you can't see the acting. And writing is best when you can't see the writing, you just see the story. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I try to aim for. And, you know, they're very similar challenges, I think. So I have to ask you the other question. What is it when you come across a book that makes you think, oh no, this is going to be a toughie? I mean, the obvious one is the he said, she said, repetitive dialogue tagging, which, you know, is a real challenge. I mean, you have to do it to a certain extent, but I work like crazy to try to minimize it. I mean, I know I speak my own books out loud before I deliver them to try to make sure I brought the dialogue tagging down as much. I mean, what tips do you have for authors who want to do better in audio and when it comes to being easier to narrate?
Yeah. The unnecessarily long sentences kind of goes back to the craft point I was making earlier. But that's not to say long sentences are bad. I mean, I think the best exponent of long sentences is Jane Austen, and her sentences are perfect, but she was a genius. So long multi-clause sentences are very, as you will know, are really hard to write, but they're very hard to read out loud and hold the meaning throughout. That's not to say please write lots and lots of short sentences, because then the rhythm of your writing will become boring. But the thing that makes me go, ugh, is when I have a sentence which I have to do again and again and again, because it's very difficult to hold the meaning. Part of that is a technique point of view, and again, that's where the stage acting comes in, because it's a breath control technique. So it's partly me not having good breath technique. But that would be a tip. If you haven't, for an actor, a really long sentence that doesn't need to be really long, that is annoying. Overly wordy descriptions, it's very easy to get lost in what the communication of what the meaning of the sentence is. And so if you get lost in how lovely your description is, you go, well, I've forgotten what you're describing now by the time we've got to adjective 5. And the last one goes back to what you were saying about speech. Sometimes I've been lucky that I've not had to read books where it just goes he said, she said, he said, she said. But there are moments in books sometimes where it becomes unclear as to who's speaking. And it often happens in a conversation with 3 or 4 people, that I think the writer knows who's speaking, that they forget to remind the reader. And you realise you're 3 sections of speech through, and you've gone, oh, that's person A, not person B. Which is, I mean, it's fine, but it because you just reread it. And the lucky thing that I have is I'm not reading it. I'm not sight reading it. I can prep it and then read it again. But that can get irritating when you realise that, oh, hang on, I've lost the thread of who's talking. So, yes, I agree with you that he said, she said, I used to be able to speak, good for my job, gets a bit repetitive. But the occasional marker is, especially in it can even happen in a 2-way conversation, but especially more than 2-way conversation, you can get lost as to who's speaking. So being able to follow that thread, especially if you've got multiple voices or multiple accents in your conversation, it's useful for my side of things.
I mean, it comes back to the point you made earlier that what makes a good audiobook is the same thing as what makes a good book. You know, the absence of speed bumps and the absence of overwriting and attempts to be a fine writer, I think, often fail. You know, people get more obsessed with trying to look good rather than just getting on with telling the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Um,
again brings me back to my point. I'm very glad that I'm not trying to be an audiobook narrator.
Well, I think that I got a really good piece of advice at drama school, which I also just trying to put into my own life, really, which is don't be interesting, be interested. And I think if you're genuinely interested in, from a writing point of view, in your story and your characters, rather than trying to be interesting with how you're telling it, that ends up being a better story. Going back to your point about the best writing is when you don't see the writing, the best acting is when you don't see the acting.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for all the work you put in for this. How long does it take you to actually narrate a book of this sort of length? To work on it.
Well, firstly, thank you very much for the book and for I loved telling it. It's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for the book and giving me the chance to be Arnold. It's very nice to do it. It took us about 4-ish days, 3.5 days, maybe.
And that's the recording. And then there's the work before that as well.
Yeah, the work before that is normally takes me about 1 to 2 weeks.
Wow.
But that's because I'm fitting it around doing other things. I mean, if I just so yeah, that's when it's fitting around other things. So around about 2.5 weeks to do the whole thing.
Yeah. Understandable. I mean, given the resonance of it and the depths of it all, it is a major piece of work. Now, what are you up to next? What's your next gigs?
I've got a couple of things in that I'm waiting to hear back on, which I probably can't say, because if I don't get them, then it'll be kind of, I'm not attached to it. So a lot of acting is waiting to hear back from things that you hope to be attached to.
That is a business, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that there are going to be some more fictitious deaths in Venice. But nothing massively exciting, but hopefully some more stuff in the pipeline coming later in the year is what I'm hoping for. What are you up to next?
Well, most of my time at the moment is spent working on a book festival in Venice called Venice Noir, which will be happening next November. I'm the international director, so we're putting together a fantastic program over 4 days. It's half Italian and half English. I'm working on the English side of it, and it's a lot of work, but it's going to be an amazing event. We did the first one last year. It all takes place in historic locations like La Fenice Opera House and Casanova's old casino, and a wonderful cultural institution called the Ateneo Veneto, which is full of Veronese and Tintoretti paintings, in places that actually the public can't walk into normally. And the great thing is it's all free. We've got sponsorships, so people can just turn up. And last year we had Ian Rankin and a bunch of great authors, and this year we will have Ian will be back, I believe, and another range of great authors. So that's taking up my time at the moment, and I'll be going over to Venice shortly for some meetings on that. But I do have another book in coming out next year, which is a bit like your acting work. I can't actually talk about it at the moment, except to say it is set in Italy, and I'll be absolutely delighted if it has Owen Findlay as the narrator. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed, David. Yeah.
Lovely talking to you, Owen, and here's all the best for the future.
And you, thank you so much.